Bienvenidos, fans of the hottest entertainment on the planet. Jaimé En Fuego here, and once again, nearly concluding my coverage of the Fantasia International Film Festival 2026! Yeah, the landmark 30th anniversary for one of the most respected genre festivals on the aforementioned planet. And yeah, y'all, it's been over 30 films that I have had the chance to check in, and just what an awesome honor to be able to see so many different types of genre filmmaking. And so, I mean, often when you hear genre, you're like, okay, fantasy, science fiction, horror. But the great thing about the programming and just the myriad of different sensibilities injected into things like that is the fact that you will have like a hefty dose of comedy or drama or what have you injected into those three genres. But this really shows like almost any sort of off-center genre filmmaking that is like gritty, hard-hitting, not your typical run-of-the-mill what have you. And Suzuki Bakudan is a film that was on my radar from the very beginning because of the fact that I just dug the mystery concept of a drunken, possibly homeless Japanese guy, big baseball fan, claims to be experiencing some sort of amnesia after being hypnotized, and that he has like almost like psychic abilities to be able to predict crimes that are about to happen. And in the case of him being taken into custody for a drunken incident after 3 cans of vodka, going into a convenience store, breaking the glass because he had no more money, not even like 100 yen, I think is what he said. He's like, I didn't even have 100 yen coin to my name. And so breaking the glass, trying to steal some more booze to, continue, drowning his sorrows after his beloved Dragons baseball team loses. He assaults the, shopkeeper of this convenience store, punches him in the face. So he ends up in police custody, and as he is being interrogated, he makes mention of a bombing that is going to happen. The interrogators just kind of blow it off, whatever. And then said bombing happens. And then another one that's a little more high profile happens at the Tokyo Dome. And then this guy proceeds to say, yeah, there's more of these that are coming. And this is only the first of 3 rounds. And so it's definitely on the lengthy and ambitious side, and well over 2 hours. I want to say it's like 2 hours, 16 minutes, something of that nature. But this is great. It is gritty. The acting is excellent from everybody. And it's not just he's kind of our lead, but is he the antagonist? Is he aiding them? Is he responsible for the bombings? Or, it's the whole are they or aren't they sort of just gray area of, is there something supernatural going on? Has this guy been imbued with a power of foresight, or is he responsible? Is he a terrorist, And the fact that they really leave it vague throughout nearly the entirety of this is really great. And the performance from this guy playing Suzuki is exceptional. He's so just eccentric and strange. The facial expressions, the weird tics and stuff. I mean, going from dead seriousness to laughter to he's even giving the people, because it starts out with, one detective, and then presumably as that first bombing transpires, they're like, okay, we need to bring in some of the bigger guns, and I'm assuming to higher levels of law enforcement and investigation and things of that nature, maybe going from a local to a national level, even though this is in the Tokyo area that this is transpiring in Japan. But yeah, it's not just about the interrogation, though, because we flip around between a few other perspectives. There are those that are combing camera footage, and they're trying to figure out, okay, was he seen at the site of where these different bombs are setting off? Because that's the thing. After the first couple go down, without getting into super spoilery details, then as he's giving them these riddles and hints, or is it diversions? Is he giving them misdirection? I mean, that's the other thing that both the audience and the law enforcement on all of the varying levels. So the higher ups that come in and take over the interrogation, all the way down to those who are working in conjunction in the field. There's 2 partners that are street level cops, and so they're on the streets, and they're going to different areas. There's a bike bomb at one particular point that they're trying to stop from going off if they found the correct little bicicleta. And then there's another instance where, okay, they have presumably determined through his riddles and stuff that it's probably a school, like a preschool or something, that is going to be the next bombing site. And, so yeah, like out in the thick of it, in the proverbial trenches, so to speak, you have some of these people, and excuse me, and they're trying to like track down, his like, did he have a home? Because he claims to be homeless, but yet then he also gives more hints a little bit later about the fact that he had been taken in by certain people, and so that it's just all of these combing together of clues, those that he is giving them about, potentially the next bomb site, but yet also they don't know his real name. They know he's using some sort of alias because he has no identification on him and he lost his cell phone. And so like every sort of convenience for his story to be this, and yet they're like, is he or isn't he? And that's like really one of the great mysteries beyond, where this could happen next and, where the next bombing is, but also just the uncertain nature about his character in general. Is he good? Is he bad? Is he some like moral shade of gray? That like, does he really have the amnesia? I mean, these are all questions that the audience is asking, the law enforcement is asking. It's super compelling writing. I was just such a big fan, and I'm not even much of a big like true crime or procedural sort of person, but seeing it in this Japanese setting, just when you get away from like the CSIs and all the shit that is just so prevalent on, American television and has been for decades, the Law and Orders and the things of that nature, I don't really gravitate towards that sort of thing. But in the case here, the writing was so sharp, the performance was so engaging from this guy that could be a terrorist or he could be a psychic. I mean, it's really great stuff. But we also get great performances, most notably from this spectacled younger guy who was like the assistant investigator almost to the bigger guns that come in. So you have the main older guy who takes over the interrogation, but then they switch over when round 2 begins, and the younger guy who is like deciphering some of his clues and stuff early on, and because they're using everything from like 12 calendar with like your sign and how that plays into different animals, and so he's giving all of these different clues, and so it's the younger guy who starts to really pick up on how he's concocting these clues, and so he takes over for the older dude, and he's featured in some of the marketing material, most notably on the Fantasia drop page for this film, which was making its North American premiere. And Bakudan translates from the Japanese language into it's basically like bomb or bombing or something of that nature. So I know Bakudan was the original title of the film, but they decided, I'm assuming for English speakers or what have you, to translate it to, well, not translate it, augment the title a little bit to Suzuki equals Bakudan. And so yeah, this guy who they brought into custody equates to bombings, and so I mean to spoon feed or just make it as plain as it already is. So I feel like the dirt for I'm just like, this is what it means. Isn't it so great that I figured it out? But yeah, very, very compelling stuff, like white-knuckle shit here, guys. I was just all about it. The only thing that keeps this from being like a 4 or a 4.5 for me is the fact that it gets a little convoluted with a B story about a disgraced cop that resigned in infamy after some predilections become known to the press, and it does, but it factors into their investigations, but you're not necessarily sure if it's like full-on misdirect, if it actually has any direct connection to what's going on. But that was the aspect of the story that knocked it down to more of like a 3.5 for me, because I didn't really care as much for that sub-story and how this disgraced cop, how their family was affected by everything that went down. I just wasn't so into that. It does play a crucial part of like, does it tie in or doesn't it tie in? And, is it something that really has any bearing into this? Because it does have some connective aspects, but you just don't know if it's like more of a direct thing or, there to throw off not just the investigators, but the audience as well. And so, I'm definitely not going to say in any spoilery fashion how everything comes together, but it was relatively satisfying, and but it's really the journey and the fact that it's not something that I completely figured out early on, which unfortunately a lot of these sort of, procedural crime films and stuff. Interestingly enough, like the opening credits to this film, because it starts out very fast paced and just goes like right into everything. It felt like television to me, the way that, or almost like a backdoor pilot to a potential television series. Now, as the film went on, I started to not feel that as much, but yeah, because it was so brisk and just got right into our setup and our inciting incident and all this other stuff, it did not waste any time. But I mean, I love the fact that we saw the investigation from so many different levels, from like the high up and even the higher ups, as they're like, okay, we need to evacuate all of like the train stations and stuff like that, and the push and pull of, no, we can't do that. It's going to muck up all of our commerce and just affect so many people's lives. And yet it's like, okay, well, do you want to inconvenience some people or do you want to save lives? And that's the thing. Like when the bombings actually do happen in this movie, there's some pretty grisly shit that they show as far as like the aftermath of bodies and stuff. And I mean, there's one instance where like a leg is like just blown off from a particular character. And I mean, it does not pull any punches. It is grisly and gritty and grimy and gross and just very sad, obviously, to see all of these innocent lives like, critically injured or in some cases dead. So, it doesn't sugarcoat, the aftermath of what a bombing looks like. And so I really appreciated that too. So this was hard hitting. It is definitely in contention for my Fuego's favorites from Fantasia video that I'm putting together here once the festival has concluded. I have just a couple of screeners left to get through. Another Japanese film called The Specials, and then another Japanese film called Break Free was one of my absolute favorites. That being completely comedic and nothing like just the dire seriousness of this. But SUZUKI equals Bakudan was one of my absolute favorites from the festival, and it is a big recommend to keep your eye out for if you frequent any festivals anywhere in the world, because I would imagine this is definitely going to get some additional attention. So I extend the grande gracias, y'all. I've been Jaimé En Fuego. You can find me on all social media sectors, Twitter X, the Instas, the Facebook, TikTok, as they say in the aforementioned Break Free, which I loved so much. On the TikTok, it's more so than anything just like short form reels from things that are in theaters right now. So, I did Spider-Man, obviously, this weekend. I took some time away from Fantasia to do that. The one right before that, though, was Her Private Hell, and Blaze from Nicholas Winding Refn, which was actually the opening night film here at Fantasia, and now it's in theaters for all to see in North America. So, there you have it, guys. But that is going to do it for this review. I still have a few more films that I'm trying to trudge through here at the very end of the festival. But, until the Reel of Ka comes around once more. Hasta luego, sin amigos, constant viewers. Say thank you. I am hopeful that we have been well met. We share more of this palava about cinema sooner rather than later. And until mañana and my next Fantasia review, arigato, and I will see you then.